as my colleague Komal mentioned, my name is Marie. I'll be hosting today's, our first ever, actually, Women in Tech Playground. For anyone who hasn't connected to the Wi-Fi yet, just connect to DevOps Playground. That's our network name. And all you need to do is sign up with your name and email. Cool. Is anyone connected, not yet connected to the Wi-Fi? Cool. I'll proceed. Cool. So before we start, I just want to make sure that everyone is connected to the RDP machine. So if you guys need login details, let us know. If you're comfortable in using your own machines and you have experience in using Node or GitHub, you can clone the repo directly, but we've made it easier for everyone to follow the session. So if everyone just log in and then open up the the session and let us know if there's any issues that you might find. Cool. So welcome guys to our first DevOps Playground. We've actually rebranded our DevOps Playground, so it's more fun, like, good good vibe. So hopefully everyone enjoys this.
And you might have seen that the shape of the glasses Panda has matches Marie's glasses.
Cool. So what are we going to do on this session? So for today, we'll be talking about Cypress. As this is a hands-on session, like I'm guessing everyone has their laptops. If you need laptops, we have some spare laptops here, but I'm guessing everyone is all settled in. Cool? No, unfortunately. Cool. So just to give everyone, yeah? Underneath one. Cool.
Okay.
You've got the login details there. Cool.
See, women, very detailed. See, that's why we should have women in tech.
Hiya. Hiya. Do you need a login details for? You have one already. Okay. Do you have your laptop as well, or you need an extra laptop? You got one. Okay. Cool. Just let me know if you have any issues, but I'll just quickly discuss what DevOps Playground is. So for anyone who hasn't heard what DevOps Playground is, so it's a monthly event that we host at ECS Digital. We created this event to inspire tech enthusiasts to explore different technologies monthly. And one of the new initiatives that we have here at ECS is we're creating our first ever digital Women in Tech. Our main goal really is to support women who are interested in technology and also socialize with other women with similar interests. We mainly want to close the gender gap in technology and want to ask more women to have that leap of change of career if they want, or if they just want to learn something new which is related to technology. A little bit about me. So I work as a QA and continuous delivery consultant at ECS. Most of my time, though, is spent at the client site. So at the moment, I work as a test architect for the Sun. I am also a full-time mom to a 21-month-old. And if ever you guys want to connect with me, you can connect with me via LinkedIn. My details is also on the GitHub repo that you access later. So you guys can just click from there. So I guess Komal also talked about ECS Digital briefly a while ago. So like she said, we're a digital transformation consultancy. We're also part of a wider group called ECS Group. So we mainly specialize on DevOps and QA, like Komal mentioned. Our customers range from startups to global enterprise. So it includes different sectors like banking, telecoms, media. And our teams are quite spread worldwide. So we have teams based in London, Edinburgh, Singapore, and also Pune. Cool. So what's our agenda for today? First, we'll talk about what testing is, if anyone's not aware what testing is, and what is Cypress. We'll talk about how Cypress is different from existing automation tools like Selenium. I'll give an overview as to how the playground session will work, and then we'll move on to the actual hands-on session. After the session, there will be a chance for everyone to ask some questions. And at the end, there will be some networking and pizza. Cool. So, what is testing? Anyone knows what testing is?
To, you want to ensure quality of your software.
Yeah?
It's very important actually that how the internet actually doesn't work, if you ask me.
Yeah?
And testing, many people think that tests are proving that software works. It's not true. Tests are proving that tests allow you to find bugs.
Yeah?
But you can test everything and it still cannot work. And I've seen it with unit tests many times.
Mm-hmm.
Unit testing with 100% coverage of a non-working code. Mm-hmm. That's why end-to-end testing with a tool like this is much better.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Okay. So just to add on what you said, so you're right, it's the process of finding and eliminating bugs in your application. So we're basically trying to ensure that the application does what it's supposed to do. And really, having a set of automation tests is much better than having none at all. So this ensures that every time you release new features, you're not regressing or you're not introducing any new defects in your code. So what is Cypress? So Cypress is quite a new tool that's been introduced, I think, about a couple of years ago. It's basically a tool that people can use to simulate browser actions like a real user. So if ever you want to simulate a click action or typing into an input, you can do it with Cypress. It provides an easy way for developers and QAs to write tests. So let's be honest, developers, they hate writing tests. They think it's flaky. They think it's a waste of time. So Cypress aims to, reduce that assumption and help developers write more tests. It's mainly a testing tool written in JavaScript. So if you're already using JavaScript, then you won't find a lot of learning curve in learning Cypress. And it's been often called as a great alternative to Selenium. We'll talk about it later on a much later slides, but I've seen different articles, different blog posts saying that it's actually a much better tool than Selenium. So we'll look at the differences between Selenium and Cypress later. So just a quick overview as to what Cypress is. So it's easy to set up. If you have Node or npm installed already, all you need to do is type npmi-d Cypress. And when you install Cypress for the first time, it creates a boilerplate structure. Yes?
What does -d mean?
-d, so it saves it on your dependency. So you can install it globally if you do it as -g, but it's just if you want to install it as a dependency instead in your project. Cool. So like I mentioned, when you first install Cypress, it will create a boilerplate for you. You will see later that when we do the hands-on, there's a set of folder structure already created for you. So what Cypress includes is it has a very interactive UI test runner, which is open source. It's free for everyone to use. And they also have a dashboard service. So they have a plan that's free, but they also have plans which users have to pay. So the dashboard service, it's mainly used to access recorded tests. For this session, though, we'll only talk about the UI test runner. One thing to note as well about Cypress is it has automatic waits on elements. So if you're using Selenium, you have to write code to implicit or explicitly wait on an element. With Cypress, it automatically does that for you. And it's not just a tool for end-to-end tests, but it can also be used for unit and integration testing. And one new feature as well that I like about Cypress is the debugging is so easy. You can access the dev tools on the Cypress test runner, and the error messages are so obvious. If you're used to using Selenium, you're going to see a long stack trace error, and it might take you a while to figure out what's the actual root cause of the issue. With Cypress, they have really obvious error messages, so you don't have to spend time trying to figure out why your test fails. So I've mentioned here that when we do the actual demo later, you'll see that whenever you hover on an event, Cypress will automatically revisit the state of your application. It might not make sense now, but you'll see later on the demo that whenever you try to just click on an action or click on the element, it automatically replays the state for you in real time. With Cypress, you can also force click an event. So say, for example, you have an application that's quite hard to test. You have to hover on an element before you have to click on it. In Selenium, you might have to hover on that object and then click. With Cypress, you can force click an element to be clickable. So we'll do a demo of that later as well. Moving on, you can easily write custom commands and assertions. So say, for example, you have a login command that you want to write a custom command against. Then it's really easy to do it in Cypress. We'll do that as well as part of our demo later. In terms of caveats and limitations, so at the moment Cypress only supports Chrome. So this includes Canary, Chromium, and Electron. And it also doesn't support XSpot selectors. So if you're used to identifying your element using XSpot, unfortunately Cypress doesn't do that for you. But you can do CSS selector, you can do IDs, class name, attributes. Cool. So people might ask, how is Cypress different? You guys might ask, isn't it just another testing tool like Selenium? And we already have loads of frameworks that are built on top of Selenium, such as WebDriver IO, Nightwatch, Protractor. So basically, Cypress is not like Selenium. The architecture of Cypress is very different from the architecture of Selenium. So I have this image here, which basically shows that everything is bundled in Cypress. When you create your automation framework at the beginning, you might have to install different packages altogether. So for example, in JavaScript, you have to install the Selenium server. But before you can use Selenium, you have to use a Selenium wrapper if you want to just access the the methods quite easily. So the wrappers include Nightwatch, Protractor, and WebDriver IO. But apart from that, you have to install the actual testing framework. So popular ones are Mocha, Jasmine, QUnit, and Karma. But it doesn't stop there. So we also have to install an assertion library. So most popular in JavaScript are Chai and expect.js. And if you need to do some mocking or stabbing, you have to install some extra libraries as well, like Synon and TestDouble. Looking at Cypress, everything is bundled together. You don't have to install different packages. All you have to do is install Cypress, and it does everything for you. So we'll see that later on the actual session. Cool. So before I go over the playground overview, I've listed some key differences between Cypress and Selenium. So first and foremost, Selenium, they support cross-browser testing. So if cross-browser is a big requirement in your company that you have to test it on multiple browsers, then maybe Cypress isn't for you. However, on their current roadmap, they are currently planning to support multiple browsers. So they're gonna do Firefox first. So it is happening, but if you want to use cross-browser now, maybe Cypress isn't for you. With Selenium, you can use it with different programming languages. So if you're comfortable with using C#, Java, JavaScript, Ruby, or Python, you can use Selenium, and they have different wrappers for that. However, with Cypress, they only support JavaScript at the moment. So I've already touched this a while ago that with Cypress, you can just set it up easily. However, with Selenium, you have to do different installation as well. The key difference as well that I want people to understand is Selenium actually works by sending remote commands to your browser. So it's not running on the same run loop as your application. So that's why debugging is difficult and you don't have access to like dev tools. However, on Cypress, it runs directly on the browser. It runs on the same run loop as your application. So whatever your application can do, you can access it easily with Cypress. And yep, I've already mentioned this like loads of times. Cool. So for today's playground, we'll walk you through how to set up the sample project in your machines. We're going to run a example image gallery application written with React. We'll explore a bit about the Cypress test runner and how you can use it. And then we'll move on to actually writing our tests. We'll also write a custom command for our last scenario. And then lastly, I'll walk you through some of the useful Cypress commands that you can use on the terminal. Cool. So, if everyone can just open the GitHub repo. Let me just show the URL. Oh, you can't. Okay. So, I've included everything that you guys need to follow for this session on this README. If ever you are stuck on one of the scenario, just have to click on one of those links, and that will redirect you to the actual README for each of those scenario. So first things first, what are the requirements for this project? So everything has been installed on that RDP, but just to reiterate what you need to have if you want to do it on your local, machine. So first, you need to have Node and npm install. Ideally, you should have basic knowledge of a code editor, and you should have Chrome browser installed in your machine. And lastly, you should have basic JavaScript knowledge. Cool. So if everyone would go to the RDP login, so I think everyone's already logged in when on the beginning of the session. But if you're not, if you open this on a new tab, the one where it says remote machine, and enter the username and password details that were handed to you a while ago.
Everyone got details? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Cool. Cool. And can everyone see the desktop version? They can see Visual Studio Code, everything? Okay. So let's make a start. Cool. So once everyone is logged in, I just want everyone to click Visual Studio Code on your desktop. And then once you have launched Visual Studio Code, just click Open Folder. And then if everyone would navigate to this folder location in order for you to open the actual project. Is everyone on this location? Or disconnection?
On the server.
Can you give her a different login? Or is it there? It's fine? Okay, cool. Cool. So once everyone is on this folder, I just want you to click select folder, and that should open up the sample project for you. Yeah. So if you need to open Visual Studio, if you go to desktop, there should be an icon for Visual Studio Code. Yeah. And then click open folder. Yeah. Are you still having issues? Yeah. Cool. I want everyone to like. Will it be easier if you use our sample laptops? It's fine. Okay. Cool. Is it okay if I proceed? No, just one more. Open folder. Okay. So if you click Visual Studio on the desktop, click open folder, and then navigate to this folder structure. Yeah. Nearly there. It's okay. Cool? Everyone okay? Cool. Okay. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code now. So we need to open a new terminal for us to run some commands. So on the menu bar, you should see a terminal, and then just click on New Terminal. Cool. Everyone has a terminal open? Cool. So before we start with writing our test, let's just verify if Cypress has been installed correctly. So on the terminal, if everyone types npx space Cypress space verify, and then just press enter. Once that's run, you should then see a message that Cypress is verified and it should be ready to use. Cool. Everyone okay? Cool. Okay. So before we write our test, we have to start our local application. So on the same terminal window, if you type npm space run space start, this should launch the example React application. Just a note to everyone that by default, Internet Explorer might launch as your default browser, and the application might not render correctly. So if you just open Chrome as a workaround and navigate to http://localhost 3000, you should then see the sample application start. Cool. Let me know if you guys can see the sample application. Go. Hey. So you can play around with it. I mean, it's quite simple. There's a header, and then if you click on an image, it should open up the image gallery. If you click close, it should close the image gallery. If you click next, it should show you the next image. Cool. So here comes the fun part. We're now ready to open Cypress. So if everyone go back to Visual Studio Code and open up a new terminal. So to open a new terminal, you should see an addition or a plus sign here. Just click on that one. And if you have a new terminal, to open Cypress, you need to type in npx space Cypress space open. Cool. Then just press enter. And then hopefully everyone can then see the Cypress test runner coming up in their machine. If not, let us know. Yeah, it might take a while to open, especially if you're connected to the RDP, but it should open. All okay? Okay. Guys, we're gonna move on. So once the test runner is open, by default, you should see two spec files, one for the image gallery and one for an external application called Squarespace. Sorry. So if everyone just clicks on the first spec file, so automatically Cypress will open up a Chrome browser, and you should then see the test runner looking like this. Cool. And then that's it. We'll start writing our tests. But before that, actually, I'll just familiarize everyone how to use the Cypress selector. The Cypress test runner. So hopefully everyone is on the same view as I am. So just to recap, on the side, they have a test status menu, so you can see how many tests run, how many will fail if you have test failures, and how long your test will run. You have a preview of your test URL and the viewport. So on the far right, you should see that the dimension that the application is currently set. So for this demo, because I want to show the desktop dimension, I've selected the 1680 by 917. This is totally configurable. You can change the viewport on Cypress. So there's two ways of doing it. You can do it by the viewport command, or you can set it on a cypress.json. For this demo though, I've just set it so that it's using one dimension. And then lastly, you can see the live preview of your application. So this is actually really easy for debugging because you don't have to keep on switching to different Chrome browser instances or your application. Everything is just on the test runner. Cool. So let's now do some hands-on exercises. So before we start, we need to actually make use of the selector playground. The selector playground is a feature provided by Cypress as part of their test runner. This actually helps you identify the selector of the element that you want to interact. So if everyone clicks on this icon and then just hover on any parts of the application, for example, the title, you can also hover on the first image, you should then see that the selector will change depending on where you've hovered.
You have to click on it.
Yeah, you have to click on this icon and then hover.
Otherwise, it doesn't change.
Yeah, so if you just need to, yeah, so if you want to check the selector for this, you should just hover. It doesn't? You have to click. Okay, go. Sorry, my mistake, guys. So if you click on the first image, the selector should then change. Cool. So as a live demo here, for example, you guys can see that the selector for the image has been changed. Cool. So I guess we're now ready to start writing our test. So I'm just gonna go on the first scenario and explain what the first test is. So for the first scenario, let's validate that the header is displaying correctly. We want to verify that the text is correct and the number of icons is returning as expected. So going back to Visual Studio Code, if everyone clicks on the Cypress, integration, and image gallery spec file, cool. So it's under Cypress folder, expand integration, and click image.gallery.spec.js. Cool. So I've already implemented the before command for this. So if you notice, we're visiting on not an empty URL, but it's visiting on a slash. So people might find it confusing how come it's redirecting to localhost 3000. So just to give you guys an overview, under the root folder of Cypress, there is a JSON file called cypress.json. And basically, Cypress has a property called base URL. If you set base URL as whatever your root application is, Cypress will take this as the default and root location. And this is where I've also set my viewport height and width. That's why on by default, you saw that on the test runner, it's running on 1680 by 917. Cool. So I'm going to switch back to the test runner because we need to get the selector for the header. Cool. So again, if everyone clicks on the Open Selector Playground, and if you just hover on the title, it should give you the title selector. So essentially, once you have this selector, you can do anything with it. You can interact. You can even like do a click event, a type event, or any other events that you would like to do. And then the selector for the icons. So let's hover on UL. And what's good is Cypress actually says how many match element we have on that page. For the UL, it's saying that we only have one match element, whereas I wanted to show us 3. So if everyone types UL space li, it should now say that there's 3 match elements. And it's showing as a highlighted that there's 3 icons that match to that element. Cool. So if I just quickly go back to the README to show you what the example code looks like. Cool. So on that first scenario where it says it should display the title correctly, this should be our sample code. So just to explain it, we're getting the title, and we're asserting that it should have a text called Marie Cruz. After that, we're getting the selector for the list, and we're saying that it should have dot length of 3. So if you go back to this Visual Studio Code and under integration, there's an image.gallery.spec file. What might be easier for everyone is if you just copy and paste this code on your Visual Studio Code, rather than typing it all manually. That might be easier for everyone.
We replace the ones that's already there.
So, yeah, so if you click on the first image gallery spec file, just replace the contents of this implement me, and that's where we have to type in the command. So if everyone has copied and pasted the sample code and they have saved their changes, we can go back to the Cypress test runner and see that our test has been updated. Yes, so you have to retry as admin. Yeah. Yeah. And then just have to click yes. Cool. So if you go back to your Cypress test runner, you should then see that the test has been updated automatically. So you should see that there's a 2 assert commands, the one that we've just done, and it's a pausing test. So it's expected that the title have the text Marie Cruz, and it's also expected that there's 3 icons. Cool. Can everyone see this? So hopefully by this time you can now see that your test is passing. And if for example you hover on one of the commands, you should see that there's some extra logging in place. So Cypress will provide you a useful debugging message, for example. Cool. So now let's try to implement the second scenario. The second scenario, we have to do a click action. So what we're going to try to verify is if you click on the first image, so going back to the React application, if you click on the first image, it should show the caption correctly. As for example, it says dog in the park. So it's the similar commands that we've done in the first scenario. So we're doing a sci.get, and then using the selector playground, if everyone hovers and clicks on the first image, it should give you this selector. And since we're trying to simulate a click action, Cypress has a command called .click. And then for our assertion, we're getting the selector for the footer, and then we're chaining 2 assertions. So we're saying that the first assertion should be visible, and the second assertion is it should have a text of dog in the park. So again, just copy and paste this code. Yeah. Yeah.
Is Cypress async?
Async. Yes, automatically is. It waits automatically, yeah. Cool. Cool. So if everyone has copied the code, you should then see that on the Cypress test runner, you should see that the second scenario has now been implemented. When you hover on the click event, a really cool feature by Cypress is it automatically replays the state of your application. So in this case, you can inspect what your application looks like before and after doing the click. So if yeah, good, okay, cool. So if everyone clicks the after, for example, as I'm doing here, you can see what your application looks like after clicking on that first image. And when I click on the assertion, it automatically highlights the footer caption. And it's saying that it's expecting that it's visible, which is now true, and also expecting that the caption has this text. So hopefully by this time, everyone knows that Cypress is very different from traditional testing tools like Selenium. You can debug the application easily. And in terms of learning curve, if you already know JavaScript, then moving to Cypress is really easy. Cool. For our final scenario for today, we're going to make use of a Cypress custom command. So if everyone goes to the scenario 3, so for this scenario, we're going to test an external application called Squarespace, and we basically want to verify if their login functionality is working as expected. We'll also make use of a Cypress custom command. So what is a custom Cypress command? So it's basically a method that you write specifically for your application. So for example, for our Squarespace application, we want to create a custom command for login so that we can reuse this method multiple times. We can simulate logging in as a valid user, or we can also simulate logging in as an invalid user. And we just have to call the same command. So to do this, go back to Visual Studio Code and navigate to this file. So if you go back to Cypress, there should be a folder called supports. And then there should be a file called commands.js. Cool. So I've already added the sample code that you guys are going to use, but essentially, if you look at the format, it's exactly the same scenario as the first and second one. So we're getting the username, we're typing in an email, we're getting the password, typing in the password, we're getting the selector for the submit button, and we're doing a click. The only difference is we've added this inside a method called cypress.commands.add. So what this is doing is we're telling Cypress to create this custom command called login, which has two parameters, one for the email and one for the password. So if everyone just copy and paste this code and replace the contents of the commands.js file, has everyone pasted the sample code? Cool, okay. So the last thing that we have to do is, even though we've created this method, we need to actually call this method for us to use it on our test. So now, going back to the folder called integration under Cypress, and just click on the second spec file called squarespace.login.spec. And then all we're doing here is we're calling the custom command called login, the one that we have just created beforehand. And we're passing in some test values. So for this demo, our test email is called test, and our test password is called, and our test password is called test password. So same thing, if everyone can just copy and paste this sample code and then save your file. Cool. So once everyone has saved their changes, if everyone goes back to the Cypress test runner, you might have to click back on the test because this is now a different spec file. So if you're on this view now, just double click or just click on the Squarespace login.spec. That should open up a new browser as well. And hopefully it should say that our tests pass. Can everyone see that their test has passed? One fail? Okay. Cool. Yeah, it's failed. Cool. So, yeah, so if you open up the Cypress test runner, this one, just click on the second one, yeah. So that should open up the second test, yeah. Cool. Everyone okay? fail. Cool. So if everyone is all okay, the last thing that I just want to show on this session is how to run your tests headlessly. So let's say, for example, you don't want to keep opening the Cypress test runner for like XYZ reason. So we can do that. So going back to Visual Studio Code, so once you're on Visual Studio Code and you're on a terminal, if everyone types npx space Cypress space run, this should run your tests headlessly on your terminal without opening up the Cypress test runner. So by default, this uses the Electron headless browser, and it gives you a log output in your terminal that your tests are being run. And then just a couple of extra commands, but we don't have to demo it. So just to give everyone like information, if they want to run it on a different type of Chrome browser, you can pass in -- browser after npx Cypress run, and then give it the browser name. So I don't think Canary has been installed in your RDP, but if it was, you can run a different browser by saying npx Cypress run -- browser Canary. If you have a requirement that you only want to run a single spec file, you don't want to run both of them, you can do that easily by typing npx Cypress run -- spec and then the location of your spec file. So this should run just the image gallery and not the Squarespace login. And then lastly, although we're not going to talk about the dashboard service, if you ever want to record your test, you can do that by typing npx Cypress run -- record. So maybe for our next meetup, we'll talk about how to do Cypress on a continuous integration service, and we can explore how we can access the recorded tests. But just for this meetup, I just want everyone to show how the Cypress test runner works, and hopefully, run a couple of tests, which we have done today. Cool. Thank you. Let me just go back to the PowerPoint. Cool. So just to recap what we did today, so I briefly talk about what Cypress is and why testing is important. We talk about the comparisons between Cypress and Selenium. We also explored the Cypress test runner and how to use the selector playground. We wrote our first Cypress test. We also explored using a custom command for the Squarespace login. And finally, I showed you some of the example, the CLI commands that we can use with Cypress, such as running tests headlessly. So since this is our first ever Women in Tech, we would really love to hear feedback from everyone, and please be honest as possible. You can also find this link on the GitHub repo. So if you go to the GitHub DevOps Playground, if you go to home, there should be a link for the survey. So please, if you have the time, fill it in and let us know how we can improve the session more. Cool. And that's it. If anyone has any questions.
Have you
Yeah.
used it commercially?
Commercially, so we're actually trying to do a proof of concept on how we can migrate from Selenium to Cypress. So we have done a bit of like some exploratory testing to check how it will be integrated with our framework, but we haven't fully integrated yet. It's just a proof of concept. But what we want is maybe on the future, we're gonna switch some of our tests to Cypress.
So So it doesn't bother you that you want text in Firefox
Well, it depends on what the company requirements is. So, for example, at the Sun, since most of our code is just like JavaScript, we are fairly confident that since it's in JavaScript, it should work on the different browsers. However, we have some visual regression tests that we have implemented just to make sure that there's no visual differences on the different browsers. For our next meetup, actually, we'll be talking about this visual comparison tool called iSpy, which might be helpful for everyone who wants to do some visual regression testing. Yeah. Any more questions? Cool.
Can
Yeah.
we use it for Power BI testing?
For?
Power BI, visualization on Power BI app, can you use it?
I think this will just work on a browser, like on an application running on a browser. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. There is a plugin that you can use for Cucumber. So if you're more comfortable in writing given, when, then scenarios, there is a plugin that you can use. Yeah. Cool. That's it. Thank you guys so much for attending, and there will be pizzas. Yeah.